Hello everyone. If you like this audiobook and want to listen to more, please consider subscribing. And if you like this video, like it as well, that it enjoy.
Chapter 148, From Lizard to Wolf. Styles and Scott stood in the abandoned warehouse where they had fought Gerard and the Zimas. Jackson lay on the floor, slowly regaining consciousness after being shocked by Malia's electricity. Jackson pushed himself up, blinking groggily. He looked around, confusion twisting his features. What's going on? Why am I here? Styles crossed his arms. Well, long story short, you're a Kanima, a lizard-like shapeshifter that needs a master to control it. Bad news, you killed Isaac's father and some other guy in the woods. You also tried to kill 2 more people. Good news, you didn't know what you were doing because Matt Daler was controlling you. Jackson shot to his feet. You're lying, I didn't kill anyone. Styles shrugged. Yeah, you did, and if it weren't for me, you would have killed 3 people instead of 2. He smirked. I cut off your tail that night, by the way. Sold it for $4,000. His smirk widened. I wonder if you've grown another one I can cut and sell again. Jackson stared at him. A tail? Scott nodded. Yeah, you turn into a lizard, dark green scales, claws, and a tail. Jackson's voice rose with indignation. Is this some kind of prank? Are you two making fun of me because I didn't turn after Peter gave me the bite? Scott shook his head. No, we're trying to save you. Jackson scoffed. I don't need saving. You 2 idiots are the ones who'll need saving after I prosecute your asses all the way to jail. He turned and started walking toward the exit. I'm out of here. You'd better hire a good lawyer. Styles's voice stopped him. I wouldn't leave if I were you, princess. Unless you want to die, that is. Jackson froze. He turned back slowly. What do you mean? Derek wants to kill you, Styles said flatly. The only reason you're still alive is because of us. Jackson's jaw tightened. I can take care of myself. Are you sure? Styles tilted his head. Because Derek isn't the only one who wants you dead. Jackson's bravado flickered. Who else? Scott stepped forward. Allison's father and his hunters. You killed one of theirs. And Jacob was going to kill you too. He only agreed not to because I asked him to let me save you. He paused. But you hit on Allison at school today while Matt was controlling you, and you called Jacob's girlfriends bitches to their faces. I'm not so sure if he is going to spare you this time. Styles added, I'm actually surprised you're still alive after calling Malia a bitch. That girl is crazy, she scares the shit out of me. Jackson's confidence crumbled. So, what, you're saying I'm stuck with you? Scott nodded. Pretty much. If you walk out that door, I can't protect you anymore. And as for suing us, go ahead, it's your word against ours. And if it comes to hiring a good lawyer, he smiled. My mom is way richer than your parents. I'm not worried. Jackson stared at them for a long moment. Then he exhaled heavily. All right, let's assume everything you said is true. How are you going to help me? By turning you into a werewolf, Scott said. Jackson frowned. You just said I'm some kind of lizard. How do you turn a lizard into a werewolf? Scott explained patiently, about Jackson's lack of identity as an orphan and adopted child, how that made him feel like he had no true sense of self, causing him to reject the Alpha's bite and become a Kanima instead of a werewolf. He explained how the Kanima was a creature that lacked its own identity and needed a master to give it purpose. Jackson listened without interrupting. When Scott finished, he said flatly, You still haven't told me how you're going to turn me into a werewolf. We need someone who loves you, Scott said. Your mother, probably. She'll have to call out your name while you're dying. Don't worry, we'll erase her memories afterward. She won't remember anything. Jackson thought for a moment. Then he nodded. Fine, but how are you going to get her here? And how are you going to erase her memories? Styles grinned. We'll kidnap her, of course. Make her watch as we fatally wound you. Then, if she loves you enough, she'll call your name and... Jackson's eyes went wide, his body stiffened, then he began to shift. Scott turned to Styles. Seriously, man, did you have to say, kidnap his mother? You made him lose control. Styles shrugged. Relax, we can just beat him until he shifts back. If you don't want to do it, I'll gladly handle it. Jackson completed his transformation into the Kanima, scales, claws, glowing eyes. But instead of attacking or fleeing, he simply stared at Styles. Then he approached slowly and raised a clawed hand. Scott tensed. What's happening? Styles's eyes widened. I read about this in the bestiary. I think he wants me to be his master. He paused, realization dawning. That means Matt is probably dead. He reached out and touched his palm to the Kanima's. Instantly, a connection formed. Styles could feel Jackson's presence in his mind, docile, waiting, ready to obey. With a thought, he made the Kanima do a backflip. Styles grinned. He pulled out his phone and started filming. Dance, he commanded. The Kanima began dancing awkwardly. Scott stared. What are you doing? Having fun. Styles didn't look up from his phone. And now that he's under my control, this is way easier. We'll just make him call his mother to pick him up. When she arrives, I'll make him stop resisting, let Derek wound him fatally, and, hopefully, she loves him enough to turn him back. Scott nodded slowly. All right, we'll wait until evening, when she gets off work. Styles nodded and, with a thought, made Jackson shift back to human form. Then, still controlling him, he made the naked Jackson dance around the warehouse, hug a support beam, and kiss it passionately, all while Styles filmed every second. Scott watched in disgust. What are you doing now? Styles grinned. He said he was going to prosecute us and send us to jail. I'm just collecting blackmail material. Scott shook his head. Okay, you've got your video. Make him stop humping the beam and put his clothes on. Styles sighed dramatically. Fine. He mentally commanded Jackson to stop and dress in his torn, shredded clothes. Then he released control. Jackson blinked, coming back to himself. He looked down at his ruined clothing, then up at Styles and Scott. What happened? What did you two do to me? Styles shrugged innocently. Nothing. You just shifted into your Kanima form, danced around for a bit, shifted back, and then really got friendly with that support beam. Then you put your clothes back on. That's why they're torn. Jackson's face twisted with disbelief. You're lying. Styles held up his phone and played the video. Jackson watched in horror as a green scaly creature danced, then shifted into him, then hugged and kissed a metal beam with disturbing enthusiasm. He lunged for the phone, but Styles pocketed it smoothly. Delete that, Jackson demanded. Styles shook his head. Not happening. But don't worry, as long as you don't sue us for trying to help you, this video will never see the light of day. Jackson opened his mouth to argue, but Styles raised a hand. Jackson's eyes went vacant. Styles guided him to a corner. Sit there. Don't move until I say so. Jackson obeyed, slumping into a daze. Scott pulled out his phone and dialed Derek. Come to the warehouse where we fought Gerard. We're going to try to turn Jackson into a werewolf tonight. As the sky over Beacon Hills darkened, Styles made Jackson call his mother. Using a lie, that he'd driven to the abandoned warehouse with a girl who'd then left him stranded, Jackson convinced her to come pick him up. When Mrs. Whitmore's car pulled up outside, Scott called Jacob. Jacob, who had been shopping with the girls, excused himself. He left Allison and Malia at the mall and teleported with Lydia to the warehouse, where they settled into the shadows to watch. Lydia studied the scene. Jackson stood in a daze in the middle of the empty warehouse, illuminated by the harsh lights left behind after Gerard's death. She turned to Jacob, confused. Why did you bring me here? Jacob nodded toward Jackson. They're going to try to turn him into a werewolf. I brought you because. Lydia's expression shifted. Hurt flickered in her eyes. The only way to save him is for someone who loves him to call his name when he's near death. Her voice tightened. Do you think I still have feelings for Jackson? Is that why you brought me here? Jacob raised an eyebrow, then flicked her forehead gently. Ow. Lydia rubbed the spot. What are you thinking, you idiot? Jacob's voice was soft but firm. Of course I know you don't have feelings for Jackson. I know the only man you love is me. Lydia pouted. Then why bring me here? I don't really care if Jackson lives or dies. Jacob pulled her into a hug. I brought you here just in case his mother's voice doesn't reach him when he is dying. I want you to amplify it with your sound control ability. That's all. He tilted her chin up, meeting her eyes. With how possessive I am, do you really think Jackson would still be alive if I felt you had even the slightest romantic feeling for him? Lydia looked away, guilt flickering across her face. Sorry, I was just overthinking. Jacob smirked. Yes, you were. I'm going to punish you all night tonight. And you'd better not lose consciousness. Lydia's lips curved into a smile. She kissed him. I'm looking forward to it. Just then, a woman's voice echoed through the warehouse, Jackson's mother, Mrs. Whitmore. Jackson. She spotted him standing motionless under the lights, his clothes torn and disheveled. Worry creased her face as she hurried toward him. Before she could reach him, a low growl rumbled from the shadows. She froze. Derek stepped out from behind a support beam, his eyes glowing red, fur spreading along his jaw. Mrs. Whitmore stumbled back, terror flashing across her face. She turned to Jackson, her voice shrill with panic. "Jackson, run, get away from that thing." But Jackson didn't move. Instead, under Styles's mental command, he began to shift. Mrs. Whitmore watched in horror as her son's body transformed, scales erupting across his skin, claws extending, his face twisting into something reptilian and monstrous. Her legs gave out. She crumpled to the floor, trembling. "What's happening?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Jackson, what happened to you?" She looked at Derek, accusation and fear mingling in her eyes. "What are you? What did you do to my son?" Styles released his control. Jackson's eyes cleared. He looked down at his scaled hands, then at his mother, terrified, weeping, but still there. Still looking at him. He shifted partially back, his face still half covered in scales, his eyes glowing with slit pupils, his mouth still filled with jagged teeth. But his voice, when he spoke, was human. "Do you still think I can be your son?" He paused, the words heavy. "Even if I'm a monster?" His mother's tears flowed freely, but her voice didn't waver. "Of course, honey, even though I'm not your biological mother, I'll always be your mom. Don't worry, I don't know what that thing behind you did to you, but we'll find a cure. We have money, we'll fix this." Jackson's expression softened. He turned to Derek and nodded. "Do it." Derek stepped forward without a word. His claws pierced Jackson's chest, through flesh, through bone, through heart. Then he withdrew and stepped back into the shadows. Jackson collapsed. Mrs. Whitmore screamed. She ran to him, collapsing beside him, pulling him into her arms. She cradled him on her lap, her hands pressing desperately against the bleeding wound in his chest. Tears streamed down her face. "Hold on," she sobbed. "I'll call for help." She patted her pockets frantically, then realized her phone was still in the car. "Wait here, I'll get my phone. I'll be right back." Jackson's hand shot up and caught her wrist. His grip was weak, but firm enough to stop her. "Don't," he coughed, blood spilling from his lips. "Stay with me." His eyes fluttered. His breathing grew shallow, each inhale smaller than the last. His mother clutched him tighter, her voice breaking. "Let me go get help. Please." But he wouldn't let go. Even as his strength faded, even as the light dimmed in his eyes, he held on to her. From the shadows, Scott watched with growing urgency. "Jackson's dying. I should go, make her call his name." Jacob appeared beside him. "Don't. She needs to believe he's dying. She needs to call his name on her own." Mrs. Whitmore let out a piercing wail as her son shifted fully to human form. His hand went limp, his eyes closed. She shook him, screamed his name, begged him to come back. Nothing. Believing her son was dead, she threw herself over him, sobbing, calling his name over and over in desperate, agonized repetition. Then she felt it, a twitch, a breath, movement beneath her hands. She pulled back, staring in disbelief as Jackson's eyes opened. His hand moved, his chest rose and fell. Just then, a translucent screen materialized before Jacob's eyes. "You have witnessed Jackson transform from Kanima to werewolf. You may now sign in, host." Jacob dismissed the window, saving the sign-in for later. He watched as Jackson stood, his eyes glowing blue, fur spreading along his jaw. The new werewolf raised his head and roared, a sound of power, of release, of rebirth. Jacob teleported instantly, appearing between Jackson and his mother. Jackson's protective instincts flared, but Jacob raised a calm hand. "Relax. I don't like you, but I'm not going to hurt your mother." He pulled clothes from his pocket dimension and tossed them over. "Put these on." Jackson caught them and dressed quickly. "Why are you helping me?" Jacob glanced at Mrs. Whitmore, still kneeling on the ground, tears on her face, shock in her eyes. "Because of her. She's a good mother." He handed Jackson a bottle of water. "Help her clean up." Jackson knelt beside his mother, gently wiping the tears and blood from her face. She touched his cheek, wonder and relief mingling in her expression. "Are you really okay?" Jackson nodded. "I'm okay now. Come on, let's get you cleaned up. I'll explain everything." He helped her wash her face and hands and dry them. When she was calm, Jacob stepped forward, memory neuralizer in hand. A flash of light, Mrs. Whitmore's eyes went distant, vacant. Jacob spoke calmly, clearly. "You will forget everything you saw after entering this warehouse. You came here to pick up your son. You found him hanging out with his classmates. Nothing more." He pocketed the device. Styles and Scott emerged from the shadows. Scott approached Jackson. You still need to learn control. Otherwise, you'll hurt more people. He glanced at Mrs. Whitmore, still dazed. You might hurt her. Jackson nodded solemnly. His mother blinked, coming back to herself. She looked around at Scott, Styles, and Jacob, then focused on Jackson with a gentle smile. Ready to go home? Jackson hesitated. Do you remember what happened? She laughed softly. Of course I do. Some girl drove you out here, then dumped you and left. Jackson forced an awkward smile. She patted his arm. Don't worry, honey, it's her loss. Now let's go home. She glanced around the warehouse with a shiver. And stay away from places like this. It's not safe. Jackson nodded, then looked back at Jacob and the others. Thanks. He followed his mother out. Once their car pulled away, Lydia and Derek emerged from the shadows. Derek looked at Jacob. The guy controlling Jackson, he's really dead? Jacob nodded. Yes, good. Derek turned to Scott. Are you going to ask Jackson to join your pack? Scott shook his head. No, he's all yours. Just make sure you teach him control. Jacob hugged Lydia and nodded to the others. All right, see you guys later. Then he teleported them back to Allison and Malia. Chapter 149, Young Again. Jacob and Lydia returned to the shopping mall and met up with Allison and Malia. After filling them in on what had happened with Jackson, they continued shopping for a while longer. Then they headed to the hospital to pick up Melissa, enjoyed a nice dinner at a restaurant, and caught a movie before Cogman drove them back to the mansion. From there, they teleported to Serendel. Finally settled in their private living room, everyone relaxed after the long day. Jacob lay back in a recliner with Kitty curled up in his lap, absently stroking her fur as he turned his attention to the system window he'd been ignoring. You have witnessed Jackson transform from Kanima to werewolf. You may now sign in, host. System, sign in. Event sign in successful. Rewards obtained. Keycap 1 system upgrade requires host permission. A new function, world travel, will become available after upgrading. World travel. You can now travel to other worlds by opening dimensional portals. Note 1. The system will search for a world and notify you when you can travel. Once a new world is visited, host may freely travel between it and the Teen Wolf world at will. Note 2. You can take your wives, or anyone you choose, with you. Note 3. To activate the world travel function, you will permanently lose the monthly sign-in. However, think of what you gain: access to other worlds, new quests, event sign-ins, location sign-ins. You're not losing anything, host. You're upgrading. Note 4. After you give permission to upgrade, the system will require 2 months to complete the process. Keycap 2 Fountain of Youth X 20 Cups Pirates of the Caribbean. Each cup contains a single dose of enchanted water from the legendary fountain. Drinking one restores the user to their youth, appearing 26 years old for the rest of their natural life. Note: does not grant immortality, just youth until death. Keycap 3 Jumanji 1995, a supernatural, jungle-themed board game. Every time a player rolls the dice and lands on a space, the game releases a danger, such as wild animals, floods, thunderstorms, hunters, or even monsters. The game, and its magical effects, only ends when a player reaches the center and shouts, Jumanji. Note: you should be careful, host. You never know what might come out. Jacob stared at the first reward, his eyes widening. He read it again, then a third time. Yes, finally, I can travel to other worlds. And losing the monthly sign-in is a fair trade, I guess, he thought. He read the second reward. Melissa is going to love that. Then he read the third reward and got more excited than he had about the world travel function. He shot up from the recliner so fast that Kitty tumbled out of his lap with an indignant yelp. He shouted out loud, yes. Allison and the girls stared at him. Kitty picked herself up, glaring. Jay, what's wrong with you, standing up so suddenly like that? Allison tilted her head. Why are you so excited all of a sudden? Jacob turned to them, his face split by a massive grin. I just unlocked a great new ability. And 2 amazing things just appeared in my pocket dimension. The girls and Kitty immediately crowded around him, curiosity blazing in their eyes. Lydia grabbed his arm. Hurry up and tell us. If you're this excited, the ability and the things must be incredible. Jacob held up his hands. Okay. First things first. He looked directly at Melissa. I finally have something that will make you young again, for the rest of your life. Melissa's eyes went wide. Really? Jacob nodded. He reached into his pocket dimension and withdrew a crystal cup filled with shimmering water. Did you watch Pirates of the Caribbean, on Stranger Tides? The girls and I did. I'm not sure if you have. Melissa nodded eagerly. I did. I watched it with Scott. This cup is filled with water from the fountain of youth from that world. Jacob held it out to her. The effect is a little different here. If you drink it, your youth will be restored. You'll appear 26 years old for the rest of your natural life. It doesn't grant immortality, just youth until death. He offered her the cup. Take it, it's yours. Melissa hesitated, staring at the cup, then at him. But this is too precious. Is it the only one? What if you need it when you grow old? Jacob teased, are you sure I should keep it? Because you're drooling. I'm not Drew. Melissa panicked, wiping her mouth, then found nothing. She glared at him. Jacob laughed and handed her the cup. Take it, are you sure? I'm sure. I won't need it. Besides, I have 20 cups. Melissa snatched it from his hands. Then say that sooner, you idiot. She raised the cup and drank. Everyone watched as the magic took effect. The fine lines around Melissa's eyes smoothed away. Her skin grew firm and radiant. Even her posture seemed to shift, her body returning to the vibrancy of youth. She stared at her hands, then touched her face, marveling at the smoothness. She looked at the others. So, how do I look? Lydia's jaw dropped. Wow, you look beautiful. Allison smiled warmly. Yeah, you look like you're our age now. And you're gorgeous. Jacob stepped forward and pulled her into a hug. I'm not gonna lie, part of the reason I liked you before was because you were an older woman. And just now, I was thinking I'd miss that. He pulled back, admiring her new appearance. But seeing you like this, I changed my mind. I won't miss the older you at all. He leaned in and kissed her deeply, thoroughly, until she was breathless. When he finally released her, his eyes burned with desire. You look gorgeous, and I kind of want to eat you right now. Melissa saw the look in his eyes and panicked. She pushed him away and ducked behind Allison, peeking out at him. I'm not ready yet. Jacob's smirk widened. You need to make up your mind soon, gorgeous. Because I can't wait for you much longer. He took a step toward her. Melissa's eyes widened. I need to go see what I look like. She teleported to her room before he could take another step. Jacob just smiled and shook his head. Lydia immediately grabbed his arm. Hurry up and give us our share. Jacob raised an eyebrow. You don't need it, you'll keep your youth because of your powers. Allison shrugged. We know, but we still want to drink it. Malia nodded vigorously. Yes, I want it too. Kitty hopped up and down. Me too, I don't want to grow old. She pointed at her fur. Look, I already have a few gray hairs. Jacob laughed. Fine. He reached into his pocket dimension and produced 5 cups, handing one to each of them and keeping one for himself. Let's all drink it together. They clinked their glasses and drank. Nothing happened to Jacob or the girls, but Kitty's eyes went wide. Oh, the gray hairs are gone. And I feel much younger. Jacob grinned. By the way, Kitty, how old are you, exactly? Kitty sniffed haughtily. You should never ask a lady her age. They settled back onto the couches, and Allison looked at Jacob expectantly. Okay, tell us about the other thing that appeared with the fountain of youth water. And tell us about your new ability. Jacob said, let's wait for Melissa to come back. Lydia snorted. She's probably not coming back. You scared her away. Jacob smirked. Then I'll have to go get her. He teleported. He appeared in Melissa's room and found her standing in front of the full-length mirror, admiring her reflection with a soft, wondering smile. She noticed him in the mirror, but instead of panicking, she simply smiled. She turned, crossed the room in 3 quick steps, and jumped into his arms, kissing him deeply. Jacob caught her easily and carried her to the bed. They made out for several long, passionate minutes, until his hands began to wander beneath her clothes. She caught his wrists gently and pulled back, breathless but smiling. Not so fast. She kissed him one last time, soft and sweet. Give me a little more time. Jacob's voice was rough but patient. When you say, more time, how much exactly are we talking about? Melissa traced a finger along his jaw. Your birthday is in 2 months, right? Let's wait until you turn 17. Okay. Jacob exhaled slowly, then nodded. Fine, I can wait 2 more months. He stood, lifting her easily into his arms. Now let's go back. The girls are waiting. He teleported them to the living room, settling into his recliner and pulling Melissa onto his lap. Lydia pouted. What took you so long? Jacob smiled innocently. Mel was thanking me. Lydia's eyes narrowed as she looked at Melissa. Weren't you acting all shy a few minutes ago? You literally panicked and escaped to your room. Now you're all lovey-dovey. Melissa snuggled deeper into Jacob's chest, completely at ease. I was panicking because I was afraid he wouldn't hold back and would try to sleep with me tonight. She looked up at Jacob with a warm smile. And for the record, I'm not shy. I never was. It's just, Jacob is way younger than me, and that made me feel a little awkward. She paused. But I promised him we'll sleep together after he turns 17. And now, I'm looking forward to it. Allison said, okay, enough romance. Jay, tell us about your new ability. Jacob's face split into an enormous grin. I unlocked the ability to travel to other worlds. The room erupted in surprised exclamations. Lydia recovered first. For real? Jacob nodded. For real. So we need to talk about when we want to visit another world. Allison leaned forward eagerly. Which world are we going to? Jacob shrugged. No idea. We'll find out when we get there. And, he held up a hand before anyone could speak, I'm going first. Alone. To make sure it's safe before I bring any of you. Allison opened her mouth to protest, but Jacob cut her off. Not up for discussion. Lydia's eyes narrowed suspiciously. Why do I feel like you just want to go there, fool around, and find some new wives before you bring us along? Jacob's eyes widened. What? No, I wasn't planning that at all. I'm just worried about your safety. Internally, he panicked. That was exactly what I was thinking. How did she know? Can she read my mind? He glanced around the room. Every single one of his wives was staring at him with identical suspicious expressions. He cleared his throat. Anyway, when should we travel? Lydia considered. How about we wait until the end of the school year? No, Malia shouted. Who cares about stupid school? I do, Lydia said calmly. I like school. Allison nodded. Me too. Melissa added, and I'm still busy with the hospital. I haven't found a good medical director yet. Jacob held up his hands. Then let's wait until summer vacation. He thought quickly. The system said I'll lose the monthly sign-in once I allow the upgrade, and it needs 2 months to finish. I'll sign in for 2 more months, then upgrade. That way it'll be ready right at the start of summer. Malia slumped in frustration. You guys suck. Jacob looked at her. Don't be sad. I have something you're going to love. He reached into his pocket dimension and took out the Jumanji board game. Did you girls watch Jumanji? Lydia's eyes widened. Yes. Is that? Before she could finish, a deep, rhythmic drumming sound emanated from the game in Jacob's hand, growing louder by the second. Everyone except Malia and Kitty stared at Jacob in shock. Melissa looked up at him. Is that thing really the game from the movie? Jacob nodded. Yes. Lydia asked, are lions and spiders and monkeys going to come out of it? Jacob nodded again. Allison clapped her hands together, her eyes sparkling. Let's play, let's play. Malia looked around, confused. Wait, can someone please tell me what that annoying thing in Jay's hand is? Jacob smiled. How about we watch the movie again so Malia and Kitty know what Jumanji is? Allison pouted but agreed. Okay, even though I really want to play. They downloaded Jumanji 1995 and settled in to watch on the large TV. A translucent system window appeared before Jacob's eyes. Host, do you wish to upgrade the system? Jacob thought, not yet. I want 2 more monthly sign-ins first. Then I'll allow the upgrade. As you wish, host. The window vanished, and Jacob turned his attention back to the movie. Chapter 150, Ready to Play. As they watched the Jumanji movie, Malia and Kitty finally understood what the board game was, and both were immediately excited. Malia bounced in her seat. We don't have to finish the movie. Let's just play. Kitty nodded eagerly. Yes, let's play. Allison smiled. I can't wait to play either, but we already started watching. Let's finish it first. What do you think? Malia sighed. Fine. The movie's pretty good so far. I don't mind finishing it. Jacob leaned back, but his mind was elsewhere. Hey, system. Does the Jumanji game affect the whole world? I was thinking, maybe we could play in Beacon Hills and not finish the game on purpose. Let things get wild. Reveal myself as a dragon and expose the supernatural side of the world. See how humanity reacts. Maybe attract some powerful creatures and fight them. And if things go badly, I could just finish the game and reset everything back to the time before we started. It'd be a perfect way to test the waters and learn what kind of powerful creatures are hiding in this world. Sorry, host, The Jumanji game does not affect the whole world. Instead, upon the first roll of the dice, the game generates a self-contained, hyperrealistic illusionary dimension. This dimension is limited to an area roughly the size of a small town, Beacon Hills, for example. If you play there, the game will create a pocket realm that is an exact replica of Beacon Hills, complete with simulated buildings, terrain, and even people. To you and any other players, this illusion will feel 100% real: sights, sounds, pain, everything. The game's dangers and creatures exist only within this copy. Meanwhile, the real Beacon Hills and the rest of the world continue on completely normally, unaware and unaffected. And no matter how long you spend inside the game's dimension, days, weeks, even years, when you finish, you will return to the exact moment you started. No time will have passed at all. So, I can't reveal myself as a dragon to the whole world in that illusionary dimension. Correct, host. That small area which the game transforms into an illusionary dimension becomes the entire world to you until you finish the game. However, you could, for example, go to Washington, D.C., and use the game to turn the area around the White House into an illusionary dimension. Then you could see how the government reacts upon learning you are a dragon. Jacob sighed internally. Forget that, I wanted to see how the whole world would react, not just the idiots in the White House. They'd just try to use me or drop a nuke on me. Anyway, the game still sounds fun. He thought for a moment. The girls, Kitty, and I want to play. Maybe others too, but isn't the game limited to 4 players? There is a way for everyone you want to include to join, host. You can form teams. The team leader rolls the dice, and their team members help them deal with the dangers that emerge from the game. I see. Anything else I should know? The creatures that come out of the game are real living beings from the Jumanji world. However, you cannot kill them while they are in the illusion dimension. When they are defeated, they are simply sent back to their own world. But if they kill you or another player, you will die for real. Additionally, if you roll a dice and the game sends you into the world of Jumanji until another player rolls and summons you back, that world you enter will be the real Jumanji world. And if you kill a creature there, they will die permanently. Jacob's eyes lit up. Can I bring people back with me from the Jumanji world? You can bring non-living things by storing them in your pocket dimension. Living creatures cannot be brought out yet, not until I can properly locate that world, and you can travel there by opening a dimensional portal after the upgrade. Jacob sighed. That's disappointing. I was hoping to bring back Ruby Roundhouse. She's hot, but if I get lucky enough to go there, I'll find her and get to know her. I just hope you can help me get to that world soon, system. That depends on your luck, host. When the movie ended, Jacob explained everything he'd learned from the system about how the game worked. Allison frowned thoughtfully. Then we need to be careful. Some of the things in the movie were no joke: giant mosquitoes, that man-eating plant. And Alan said there were much worse things in the game. Jacob shrugged. Don't worry, we're strong. Those things will be easy for us. He grinned. I was thinking of inviting everyone and playing in Beacon Hills. What do you girls think? Lydia considered. Then we should wait until morning. It's dark in Beacon Hills now, and I don't want to fight scary giant bugs at night. I hate bugs. Malia pouted. But I don't want to wait until tomorrow. Jacob patted her arm. We could play now, but it might feel a little boring tomorrow when we play with everyone else. Let's wait. I promise we'll play as much as you want after this. Malia sighed dramatically. Fine. Jacob nodded. Okay. Allison, you go tell your parents about the game. Tell them to rewatch the movie too. Let Cogman and Natalie know as well. I'll tell Styles, Scott, and Noah. Allison nodded and left. Jacob pulled out his phone and sent a few quick messages. When he finished, he stood and scooped Lydia into his arms. Now, let's go to my room. I need to punish you for overthinking things when I took you to watch Scott and the others help Jackson. Lydia winked, a teasing smile playing on her lips. I thought you forgot. Jacob smiled back. How could I forget? Tonight, I'll remind you just how much I love you. With that, he teleported them both to his bedroom, where they spent hours together until Lydia finally passed out, thoroughly exhausted, a satisfied smile still lingering on her lips. The next morning, Jacob and Lydia shared a quick shower, then headed to the dining room for breakfast. Malia and Kitty were already there, along with an unusually excited Cogman. Cogman rushed to Jacob the moment he saw him. Good morning, sir. May I participate in the Jumanji game as well? Jacob smirked. Sure. He kissed Malia and sat down beside her. Soon, the room filled Allison arrived with her parents and Natalie. Styles, Noah, and Scott filed in. Melissa was the last to join. As she walked in, Scott's jaw dropped. Beside him, Chris, Noah, and Styles looked equally stunned. Across the room, Victoria and Natalie stared, their eyes going wide as they took in Melissa's youthful new form. Scott found his voice first. "Mom, what happened to you? That can't just be one of Jacob's nano masks, right? Because it's not just your face, your whole body has changed." Melissa smiled serenely. "No, I'm not wearing a mask. I'm young again." She tilted her head. "The only thing that makes me look old now is you." Her smile widened. "So from now on, when we're outside, you should call me Melissa. Not Mom." Scott clutched his chest dramatically. "Are you trying to disown me?" Melissa's smile turned wicked. "Yes, I raised you into a man. You can take care of yourself now." Scott glared at Jacob. "I blame you for this." Jacob grinned. "Even though Mel doesn't want you to call her mom anymore, I wouldn't mind if you called me dad. In fact, I'd love that." He leaned forward, anticipation shining in his eyes. "Go on, son, call me dad, let me hear it." Scott's eyes flashed. "Screw you." Melissa laughed and walked over, ruffling Scott's hair. "Relax, sweetheart, I was just messing with you. You can still call me Mom." Natalie stared at Melissa, her eyes wide with wonder. "Melissa, how did you become young like that?" Victoria leaned forward. "Are you a supernatural creature now? Or did Jacob give you something to eat or drink?" Melissa smiled. "He gave me something to drink." Both Victoria and Natalie turned to Jacob with hungry eyes. They walked toward him, and Victoria cleared her throat, attempting her sweetest, most maternal tone. "Jacob, honey, can you give me what you gave Melissa? It's the least you could do. After all, I gave you my precious daughter." Natalie nodded eagerly. "Can I have some too?" Jacob raised an eyebrow, then produced 2 cups of fountain of youth water. He handed one to each of them. "Here, take it." He looked at Victoria with a slight shudder. "And please, never act all nice and sweet like that again. You scared me." He held up his arm. "Look, goosebumps." Victoria snatched the cup from his hand. "Do you think I like being nice?" She pointed at her own arm. "Look, I have goosebumps too." Her expression softened, and a genuine smile broke through. "But, thanks, now I think I love you more than my stupid daughter." Allison pouted. "Mom." Victoria shot her daughter a teasing wink. Natalie held the cup in trembling hands, her eyes darting from the water to Jacob. "Thank you, Jacob." Jacob nodded. "You're welcome, now drink up." Victoria and Natalie raised their cups and drank. Everyone watched as the magic took effect. Wrinkles smoothing, skin firming, bodies returning to the vibrancy of youth. Chris and Noah stared, pleasantly surprised, and suddenly feeling very old. Lydia and Allison immediately surrounded their mothers. Allison beamed. "Wow, Mom, you look beautiful." Lydia studied Natalie with a grin. "You look gorgeous, Mom. If people saw us now, they'd think you were my sister." Lydia and Allison exchanged a glance, then their eyes widened in unison. "Oh no," they said together. They turned to look at Jacob. Jacob was casually eating his breakfast, but his gaze kept drifting toward Victoria and Natalie. He studied them up and down, nodding appreciatively, his eyes lingering on their faces. "I knew they might have been beautiful when they were younger," Jacob thought, "but this is a surprise. Both of them look so hot. Even Victoria. Too bad they're Allison and Lydia's mothers. And they're both in relationships. Don't even think about it." Allison's and Lydia's angry voices rang in his mind. Jacob's gaze snapped away from Victoria and Natalie. He looked at Allison and Lydia and replied telepathically, "I'm not going to lie, they're both beautiful. And if they weren't your mothers, I might consider going after them. But they are your mothers. So relax, I have no interest in them. I'm just appreciating their beauty. Nothing more." Allison's telepathic voice was cold. "Then stop looking at them like that. Your charm ability only works on women you're interested in, and with those hungry looks you're giving them, I think you're very interested. Stop before it's too late." Jacob sighed internally. Fine, I'll stop staring. And like I said, I'm not interested. Don't worry so much." Satisfied, for now, Allison and Lydia each grabbed their mothers and teleported out of the dining room to find a mirror. Chris and Noah finally came back to their senses. Chris stood, walked to Jacob, and cleared his throat awkwardly, extending his hand. Jacob smiled and placed a cup in it. He took another cup and looked at Noah, who was still sitting, unable to muster the courage to ask. Jacob walked over and handed it to him. Noah took it gratefully. Thanks, Jacob. Both men drank. The years melted away. Styles grinned at his father's new appearance. Dad, you look great. He lunged toward Jacob, arms outstretched. Jacob, thank you, I could just kiss you. Jacob's fist connected with Styles's face. Styles flew backward and crashed into the wall. Everyone burst into laughter. Styles slid down the wall, groaning. One day I'm going to kiss you, Jacob. I promise. Jacob settled back into his chair. Cogman, beat up Styles, please. Cogman's smirk turned wicked as he eyed Styles. With pleasure, sir. Styles scrambled to his feet. I'm not afraid of you, you stupid tin can. What followed was less a fight and more of a chaotic mess, eye gouging, hair pulling, attempted wedgies, and some truly ridiculous karate moves on Styles's part that would have made any martial artist cry. They didn't use their super strength, keeping it purely ridiculous. In the end, they both ended up tangled on the floor, kicking, punching, and pulling each other's hair and cheeks like children. Everyone laughed as they watched the ridiculous spectacle. But soon, the laughter died down. One by one, they shook their heads and returned to their breakfast, completely ignoring the two idiots. They'd gotten used to these childish fights by now. After breakfast, everyone teleported back to Beacon Hills and gathered at Jacob's mansion to begin the game. They settled in the living room and split into 4 teams. Team 1, Jacob, Styles, Scott. Team 2, Allison, Chris, Victoria. Team 3, Malia, Kitty, Cogman. Team 4, Lydia, Melissa, Natalie, Noah. Jacob reached into his pocket dimension and produced 5 small vials. White honey potions, he explained. Drinking this grants permanent immunity to all poisons. He handed them to Kitty, Chris, Victoria, Natalie, and Noah. The rest of us have already taken it. Drink these now, just in case something in the game tries to poison you. They thanked him and drank. Styles glanced at his father, a happy smile on his face. Jacob immediately pointed a warning finger at him. Do anything stupid, like try to kiss me again, and you're out of the game. Styles raised his hands in surrender and didn't dare say a word. Jacob pulled out the Jumanji board. The moment it left his pocket dimension, the familiar drumming began, low at first, then growing louder. He opened the game and placed it on the table. Styles leaned in, reading the engraved words with growing excitement. Jumanji, a game for those who seek to find a way to leave their world behind. You roll the dice to move your token. Doubles gets another turn. The first player to reach the end wins. He continued, his voice dropping to a dramatic whisper. Adventurers beware, do not begin unless you intend to finish. The exciting consequences of the game will vanish only when a player has reached Jumanji and called out its name. Malia bounced impatiently. All right, let's start already. Each team captain took their token. The teams joined hands, forming connected chains. The captains tossed their tokens onto the board simultaneously. The tokens landed, and slid into their starting places on their own, guided by an invisible force. A green light pulsed from the crystal ball in the center of the game, sweeping outward like a wave. It passed through each captain and their linked team members, warming them briefly before settling, acknowledging them as official teams bound to the game. Jacob looked at Malia. You go first. Malia grabbed the dice, a wild grin spreading across her face. She shook them in her hand, then threw them onto the board. Chapter 151, Playing Jumanji. Malia grabbed the dice, a wild grin spreading across her face. She shook them in her hand, then threw them onto the board. She rolled a 3. Her token moved. Green light pulsed from the crystal ball in the center of the game, and glowing letters formed a riddle. Malia leaned in and read aloud. They crawl the walls, they swarm the floor. Neglect their threat, your life's no more. She looked around. What does that mean? Before anyone could answer, a scuttling noise came from the kitchen. Jacob wrinkled his nose in disgust. The smell hit him, like dirty socks and sewers. Cockroaches. A large, dark brown shadow burst out of the kitchen and flew straight toward Malia's team. Jacob waved a hand. The shadow froze midair. Everyone finally saw it clearly. It was a massive, reddish-brown cockroach, wings spread wide, its 6 legs covered in rows of sharp, prominent spines. All the girls screamed, except Malia and Victoria. Styles let out a high-pitched shriek. Scott stared at him. Really, dude? Styles ducked behind Scott, peeking out. I hate those creepy crawlers. He pointed at the frozen creature. Look at it, it's the size of an adult Rottweiler. Allison composed herself. Jay, send it back to the kitchen and seal the door, please. Jacob flicked his wrist, and the giant roach flew back through the kitchen doorway. He stepped closer to peer inside, and immediately recoiled. The kitchen was a writhing mass of giant cockroaches. They were everywhere, on the counters, the walls, the ceiling. More were crawling out of a large hole that had opened in the floor. The sound of chitin scraping against tile was almost deafening. Some of them noticed him. A group launched into the air, wings buzzing. Others skittered across the floor at terrifying speed. Jacob stomped his foot. A wall of solid rock erupted from the floor, sealing the kitchen doorway completely. He returned to the group and sat down. There are hundreds of them in there. Maybe thousands. He shuddered. I can still hear them. I feel like they're crawling on me. Styles raised an eyebrow. Are you scared of roaches too? No, Jacob said flatly. I just hate them. Malia cracked her knuckles. Let's go kill them all. Jacob shook his head. We can't. They're still crawling out of a hole in the floor. Killing them won't stop more from coming. He paused. Just forget about those creepy things for now. A window shattered in the kitchen. Jacob and the others looked outside just in time to see the roaches abandoning the house, streaming across the lawn toward the town. Noah exhaled. Lucky this isn't the real Beacon Hills. Lydia picked up the dice. Okay, let's get back to the game. She rolled a 5. Her token moved. The crystal ball pulsed again, new letters forming. Lydia read aloud. They stand so still, they seem asleep. One touch, their screams will pierce your ears. A crack split the floor. From it, slender green stems pushed upward, unfurling heart-shaped leaves. More cracks appeared. New shoots coiled around furniture legs and snaked up the walls. One tried to wrap around Jacob's ankle, but he moved away. Everyone stood. Jacob grabbed the game board, and they watched as flowers bloomed, each shaped like a gaping mouth. The mouths turned toward Lydia and the others. Allison gave Lydia a sidelong glance. Screaming flowers. The game really knows you, doesn't it? Lydia huffed. I am a beautiful flower, and I can scream. But don't compare me to these ugly things. If you want to compare me to a flower, choose a red tulip. Or a red daisy. Allison ignored her. Jay, should we leave this room? Styles was already backing away. More like leave the mansion. Those things are spreading fast. Jacob nodded. Let's go. Try not to touch the flowers. They moved toward the exit, only to find thick vines already blocking the door. Cogman's arm shifted into a blade, and he sliced through them with ease. But that was a mistake. The flowers screamed. The sound was unbearable, a high-pitched wail that drilled into everyone's skull. Chris, Victoria, Natalie, and Noah, with only beta-level strength, stumbled, blood trickling from their ears. Jacob, Malia, Kitty, and Scott clutched their heads, their supernatural hearing making the pain far worse. Lydia acted fast. She raised her hands and threw up a sound barrier around the group. The screaming cut off instantly. Cogman looked at his bladed arm with dismay. My apologies. I thought it was only the flowers we shouldn't touch. Jacob waved his hand, and his telekinesis crushed every screaming flower in the room. Let's get out of here. More will grow. They left the mansion, but just as they stepped out the front door, they were attacked by a swarm of giant cockroaches pouring from the kitchen's broken window. Fireballs, ice arrows, and lightning bolts flew. Jacob, Malia, Allison, and Lydia killed wave after wave, but more kept pouring out of the mansion. After a moment, the roaches seemed to realize they were hopelessly outmatched. They stopped attacking and scurried past the group, heading for the town. They left the mansion behind and walked out onto the asphalt road. Jacob handed the game board to Allison. Your turn. Allison opened the board and placed it on the road. She took the dice and rolled. A 6. Her token moved. The crystal ball glowed. Allison read the new riddle. Beneath the water, still they lay. For months and years they wait for prey. So watch your step, don't tempt the tide, or in their jaws you'll soon reside. Malia raised a hand eagerly. I know this one. Crocodiles, right, I just watched a documentary that said crocodiles can survive for over a year without eating. Styles was about to respond when the asphalt road beneath their feet suddenly dissolved into churning water. Everyone plunged into the river, except Jacob, who levitated with telekinesis, snatching the game board out of the water and floating it beside him. Cogman shot out of the water on his thrusters. Allison rose on a column of wind. Malia's wings snapped open, and she flew out of the water. Lydia floated up gracefully beside Jacob. Jacob waved his hand, and Melissa, Natalie, Chris, Victoria, and Noah were lifted out of the water, hovering in the air around him. Melissa looked down at the river, where Kitty, Styles, and Scott were still swimming. What about them? Jacob folded his arms. They can handle crocodiles. Let them have some fun. He called down to the swimmers, what do you think, guys? Styles treaded water, grinning. Yeah, leave us down here. I want to fight a crocodile. Kitty said, me too. A massive shadow glided beneath the water toward Styles. Noah's eyes went wide. Styles. Behind you. Styles spun around just as a 15-meter crocodile exploded from the surface, jaws gaping wide enough to swallow him whole. Styles's confidence vanished. Okay, nope, I changed my mind. Get me out of here. This is no crocodile, this is a prehistoric nightmare. Kitty swam to Styles, climbed onto his head, and launched herself into the air above the crocodile. She drew her tiny rapier and thrust it down, but the thin blade shattered against the creature's armored skull. Ah, my sword, Kitty shrieked. Enraged, she punched the crocodile with her free paw. The beast's skull caved in, and it sank to the bottom of the river. Jacob waved Kitty up to him and patted her head. Don't be sad, your sword will be back to normal when the game ends. And if you love it that much, keep it safe at home. Ask Cogman to make you a stronger one. Kitty sniffled. Okay. Below, Scott yelped. Something bit my leg. Styles turned to him, then froze. On the shallow shore behind Scott, two massive hippos were charging toward them. Styles's voice cracked. Those are hippos. No one said anything about hippos. He looked up. Jacob, get us out. Scott screamed as something bit him again. Jacob waved his hand, and both of them flew up to join the group. Everyone stared at Scott's backside. A piranha was clamped onto his ass, thrashing. They burst out laughing. Scott grabbed the fish, ripped it off, and crushed it. Stupid fish. He hurled the mangled remains into the river. Styles caught his breath and looked at Jacob. Okay, I need to ask something. When you killed the roaches, and when Kitty killed that crocodile, and when Scott killed that fish, their bodies didn't disappear. You said these creatures are real, and when we defeat them, they go back to their world. But they look pretty dead to me. Jacob shrugged. They'll return alive to their world when the game ends. How it works, I don't know. Styles looked down at the river. The crocodiles and hippos were still watching them with hungry eyes. An evil grin spread across his face. Now that you can't reach me, let me show you how strong I am. He raised his hand. Lightning gathered above his palm, swirling into the shape of a large weasel. He shot it at one of the hippos. The creature convulsed, smoke rising from its mouth. It tried to dive underwater, but Styles sent another lightning weasel after it. Then he turned his attention to the crocodiles and the remaining hippos, laughing maniacally as he sent one lightning weasel after another toward them. Lydia watched him. This is the first time I've seen Styles use the lightning beast technique. She glanced at Cogman. If an alpha werewolf bit him, do you think he'd turn into a wereweasel? Cogman considered. Weasels are known for being cunning, untrustworthy, and exceptionally sneaky. They can kill prey much larger than themselves and are known to dance to confuse their victims. He nodded. I estimate an 80% chance he would become a weasel. Noah watched his son electrocute river monsters with gleeful abandon. Or a fox. Styles lies a lot. He's clever. He plays pranks. I always thought of him as a sneaky little fox. Chris added, there is a supernatural creature called a kitsune. A fox shapeshifter. Known tricksters. He nodded toward Styles. It would fit his personality. Styles overheard and looked up indignantly. Hey, if I become a supernatural creature, I'm becoming something legendary and majestic. Like Jacob. For a moment, everyone just stared at him. Then they burst into laughter, like they'd heard the funniest joke of their lives. Styles, frustrated, took out his anger on the remaining crocodiles and hippos with renewed vigor. When the laughter died down, Jacob said, all right, let's find somewhere else to play. It's my turn. He wrapped everyone in his telekinesis and teleported them to a stretch of land far from the river, near the Beacon Hills Preserve. He opened the game, placed it on the ground, took the dice, and rolled. A double. His token moved. The crystal ball glowed, and new letters formed. Jacob read aloud. They mean no harm, they mean no fight. They just want kisses, day and night. They have seen your pretty face. Now you're the target of their chase. A chill crawled down Jacob's spine, his blood running cold. Something bad is coming. I can feel it, he thought. He ducked behind Styles. Scott, noticing his panic, hid behind Noah. A moment later, 4 female bonobos emerged from the woods. Since Jacob had thrown the dice, they ignored the other teams entirely, but they didn't see Jacob or Scott. Their eyes locked onto the only visible member of Jacob's team. Styles. The apes chattered excitedly in their own language, then charged at Styles, puckering their lips and opening their arms wide. Styles spun around. Jacob was hiding behind him. Scott was hiding behind Noah. Styles ran. The bonobos chased him, ignoring Scott and Jacob completely. Styles screamed as he fled. "Why are they chasing me?" Lydia called after him, barely containing her laughter. "Because you're in Jacob's team." The riddle said, "They have seen your pretty face. Now you're the target of their chase." Jacob and Scott hid, but you just stood there like an idiot, waiting excitedly for whatever was coming. The apes decided you were their target of affection. Everyone burst out laughing. Styles dodged a lunging bonobo, shouting at Scott and Jacob. "Traitors." Scott was laughing so hard he could barely speak. No, I just heard something that wanted kisses day and night, was coming out of the game and thought I'd leave it for you. You're my good brother, after all." Styles narrowly avoided another embrace. "If I'm your good brother, come take my place." Scott shook his head. "I would, but it seems those apes only have eyes for you. Enjoy." "Screw you." Jacob finally stopped laughing, wiping a tear from his eye. "Phew, that was close. I almost got tricked by the stupid game. Good thing I have a good sense of danger." Allison gave him a sideways look. "Seems the game knows you're a pervert. It sent you a bunch of perverted apes." Jacob snorted. "The game doesn't know me at all. If it did, it would have sent a group of beautiful barbarian women." Allison rolled her eyes and ignored him. Styles had finally had enough. He stopped running, spun around, and punched each of the 4 bonobos in the head. "Stop. Go find someone else to kiss. I'm not interested." The bonobos clutched their heads and stared at him with aggrieved, heartbroken eyes. Lydia and Malia walked over and began patting the apes' backs soothingly. Lydia glared at Styles. "How can you be so heartless? They just wanted to hug and kiss you." Melissa smirked. "Yeah, Styles, be a man, take responsibility." Styles stared at her. "Take responsibility?" Malia laughed. "They're in love with you. Be a man and love them back. If you're shy, you can find an empty house with your 4 new lovers. We won't judge." Noah placed a hand on Styles's shoulder, fighting to keep a straight face. "You should spend as much time with them as you can, son. The game will end soon, and they'll go back to their world. You'll regret not spending more time with them." Styles's voice cracked. "Not you too, Dad." He turned to the 4 apes with an evil smile. "I get it, I'm too handsome. Females from all species can't help but fall for me. But nothing can happen between us. So let me spare you the pain of heartbreak and end your miserable lives." The bonobos squeaked and hid behind Malia and Lydia. Styles raised a hand to attack, but Lydia stepped forward. "Don't you dare attack them. They're too cute." Styles lowered his hand. "Then you'd better keep them away from me. Or I will kill them." Jacob picked up the dice. He had rolled a double, so he got another turn. He threw them onto the board. A 7. The crystal ball glowed again. Jacob read the new riddle. "The warlord comes with iron will. His savage horde descends to plunder and kill. He seeks a jewel that isn't there. He'll burn this town without a care." Jacob's lips curved into a slow, dangerous smile. "I know who he is. I just hope he can take a punch." Chapter 152, Playing Jumanji Point. 2. Jacob threw the dice onto the board. A 7. The crystal ball glowed again. Jacob read the new riddle. "The warlord comes with iron will. His savage horde descends to plunder and kill. He seeks a jewel that isn't there. He'll burn this town without a care." Jacob's lips curved into a slow, dangerous smile. "I know who he is. I just hope he can take a punch." The forest went quiet. Then branches snapped, leaves rustled, the ground trembled faintly, like something heavy was moving through the trees. Styles frowned, looking toward the woods. "What now?" Noah's expression darkened as the noise grew louder. Boots, engines, metal clanking, distant animal snarls. "That sounds like an army." Jacob's grin widened. "This is going to be fun." He turned to the group, his tone turning serious. "Okay, those guys probably have weapons. Victoria, Chris, Natalie, Noah, be careful. Don't get hit by a bullet, or a rocket, or anything like that." Melissa stepped forward. "I'll protect them with my energy shield." Jacob nodded. "Good." He reached into his pocket dimension and produced an array of weapons, assault rifles, sniper rifles, handguns, all the spoils he'd collected from fallen hunters over the past months. He handed them to Victoria, Chris, Noah, Natalie, and Melissa. You can use your lightning and fire spells, but that'll drain your energy. Use these guns to have some fun. The forest exploded with movement. Trees shook as figures poured out of the woods. Thousands of them. A savage horde emerged, spreading across the edge of the Beacon Hills Preserve like a living tide of violence. At the front of them all, he appeared. A towering, broad-shouldered warlord with a scarred, savage face, wild unkempt hair, and a thick beard. His armor was a mix of leather and metal plates, worn and dented from countless battles. At his sides walked two massive spotted hyenas, their eyes burning with hunger and violence. Behind him stretched his army, rows upon rows of raiders clad in desert armor. They carried axes, curved blades, spears, crossbows. Dozens of vehicles followed, spiked trucks, armored off-road cars, roaring dirt bikes kicking up clouds of dust. Some warriors stood atop them, shouting, raising weapons, waving crude banners. The entire army stopped, facing Jacob and his group. The warlord stepped forward, his voice deep and commanding. I heard you have the Falcon Jewel. His gaze was cold. Hand it over, and I will grant you and your friends, and everyone in this town, a quick death. Jacob's eyes gleamed with anticipation. As I thought, he's Jurgen the Brutal from Jumanji, the next level. According to the movie, he possesses immense superhuman strength and endurance, outclassing even Dr. Bravestone. I'm looking forward to fighting him. He smiled. I don't have this jewel you're talking about. And even if I did, I wouldn't give it to you. His smile widened. And I do hope you can take a beating, because I won't grant you a quick death. Jurgen laughed. He looked back at his army. Did you hear that? He laughed again. The pretty little boy wants to kill me. The army burst out laughing, mocking Jacob with crude gestures and jeers. Jacob just smiled. Allison and the others didn't react either. They knew how strong Jacob was. Styles shook his head. What a bunch of clueless idiots. He nudged Scott. Scott, let's see who can kill the most of them. Scott hesitated. Styles rolled his eyes. Come on, don't tell me you don't want to kill them. They're not real. Well, they are real people, but they won't really die. Even if you cut them to pieces, they'll just go back to their world when the game ends. Scott's resolve hardened. Fine, I'll kill them. It's good training. Chris stepped up beside Jacob. Do you have a sword I can borrow? Jacob raised an eyebrow. Why? I want to fight. Jacob reached into his pocket dimension and pulled out an M16 rifle, Tony Montana's little friend. He handed it over. Use this. It has infinite ammo. Chris took the weapon, his eyes lighting up as he examined it. What a beauty. He looked at Jacob. This is mine from now on, right, son? Jacob smiled. Sure. He glanced at Allison. Keep an eye on him. Allison nodded. I will. She drew her katana, Shisui, from her ring and moved to her father's side. Let's fight together, Dad. Chris's expression softened with pride as he stood beside her. Jurgen finally stopped laughing. He raised his hand, and a small wave of his warriors and hyenas charged forward. Jacob punched the first attacker, a man swinging an axe. The blow was so powerful the axe shattered like glass, and the man's chest caved into a bloody mess. He died on the spot before his body flew backward toward Jurgen. Jurgen raised a brow at Jacob's strength but didn't seem to care. With a wave of his hand, he swatted the incoming corpse aside like a fly. Then his gaze shifted. He saw Cogman cutting a hyena in half with his alternate blade. Lydia opened her mouth and unleashed a powerful sonic attack that sent two of his men flying back into his army before more were caught in the blast. Allison waved her katana, and a green wind slash flew, cutting a hyena and the man beside it charging at her in half. Chris opened fire beside her, dropping another man before aiming at the army and launching a grenade from the launcher attached to his M16, killing a few and injuring more. Malia used her lightning, electrocuting two men into blackened chunks of charcoal. Styles unleashed a lightning beast spell, sending a crackling weasel toward the men attacking them, electrocuting them to death. Scott hesitated for a second, then raised his hand. He used the Faraga spell, sending a fireball toward a hyena and a man. It exploded on contact, killing both. Jurgen was now startled. He looked at Jacob. How can you have powers like that? Did you use the jewel? Jacob smirked. Like I said before, I don't have any jewel. Then he disappeared, and reappeared directly in front of Jurgen, punching him hard in the face. To his delight, Jurgen's head didn't explode. He withstood the force of the punch, but still flew backward, crashing through several of his own men. Jurgen stood up, rubbing his jaw, now staring at Jacob with deadly seriousness. "Attack," he roared, gesturing wildly at his army. "Kill them all." Then, instead of charging, he began slipping behind his troops, retreating into the safety of the horde. Jacob was in no hurry to chase him. He stored the game board safely in his pocket dimension, his eyes glowing red as he faced the massive army charging toward them. An excited smile spread across his face. "Guys, let's have some fun." He charged into the army. Behind him, Allison, Lydia, Malia, Kitty, Styles, Scott, Cogman, and Chris joined the fray. Melissa, Noah, Natalie, and Victoria stood protected behind Melissa's energy shield, firing into the horde with the weapons Jacob had given them. Jacob didn't hold back. Fire erupted from his palms in roaring torrents, sweeping across the front lines and reducing dozens of raiders to ash. He thrust his hand forward and a serpent of magma burst from it, coiling through the enemy ranks, melting weapons, armor, and flesh alike. Lightning arced from his fingertips, branching into a dozen jagged paths that jumped from warrior to warrior, leaving smoking corpses in their wake. He clenched his fist and the ground beneath a charging platoon buckled, swallowing them whole before snapping shut like a beast's jaw. He turned his gaze on a group of armored raiders trying to flank him. His eyes glowed crimson, twin beams of searing heat lanced out, cutting through them like a hot knife through butter. Bodies fell in halves, their weapons clattering to the ground beside them. A dozen archers drew their bows. Jacob inhaled deeply, then roared, unleashing his dragon shout. Fus ro da. A concussive blast of raw energy exploded from his mouth, rippling outward in a visible shockwave. The archers were lifted off their feet and hurled backward, their bodies slamming into trees, rocks, each other. The closest ones simply disintegrated, their forms scattering into ash before they hit the ground. The shockwave didn't stop there. It tore through the army like a hurricane, flinging warriors, vehicles, and debris in all directions. A spike truck lifted into the air, spun twice, and crashed into a cluster of raiders, crushing them instantly. Jacob didn't slow. He raised both hands and lightning rained from the sky, each bolt finding a target. Fire, earth, lightning, telekinesis, he wove them together into a symphony of destruction, each movement effortless, each attack devastating. A raider swung a curved blade at his head. Jacob caught it with 2 fingers, shattered it with a flick, and backhanded the man so hard he flew through 3 of his comrades before all 4 of them crashed into a tree that splintered on impact. Another tried to shoot him from behind. Jacob didn't turn. The bullet stopped midair, inches from his skull, then reversed course and tore through the shooter's own chest. He was everywhere and nowhere, dodging, weaving, striking with impossible speed. Warriors fell before they could scream. Hyenas fled, their predatory instincts screaming that they had picked the wrong prey. Across the battlefield, Lydia and the others had stopped fighting. They stood in stunned silence, watching Jacob slaughter the enemies with ease. Styles lowered his hands, the lightning weasel he'd been about to send fizzling out. "That's cool. That's the kind of power I want to have someday." Allison sheathed her katana, her expression a mix of awe and exasperation. "He's showing off." Chris stared, the M16 hanging loose in his grip. "This is the first time I've seen him fight seriously. I'm glad he's on our side." He glanced at Allison, and that he considers us family. Allison shook her head, a fond smile tugging at her lips. "You're wrong, Dad, he's not being serious at all." Chris blinked. "This isn't serious." Lydia stepped up beside them, arms crossed, watching Jacob tear through another wave of raiders. "Not even close. You know that lightning spell he gave you. When he uses it himself, he can summon a giant, terrifying lightning dragon that could probably destroy half of Beacon Hills, if not all of it." Allison nodded. "He also has a fire domain. It makes his fire attacks devastating. And all of this without him shifting into his dragon form." Chris's eyes widened. "He has another form." Lydia smiled faintly. "Oh, yes, he becomes a nightmare with wings when he shift." Chris looked back at Jacob, who was currently using his telekinesis to juggle 3 armored raiders before hurling them into a burning truck. "Are you girls seriously telling me this is him holding back?" Malia watched Jacob with undisguised pride. "Yes, he's never needed to go all out. Not even when he fought that Yeti. Not even when he spars with us." Styles sighed. "You know, hanging out with him every day, I forget just how much of a monster he is." He paused, watching Jacob punch a raider so hard the man's body tore apart. I'm glad Scott and I met him that night when we were looking for the body in the woods. Glad we became his friends. Scott, who had been quietly observing, shook his head. Look at him, he's smiling. He's enjoying this. He looks like a psychotic, murdering maniac. As if to prove the point, Jacob's crazy laughter echoed across the battlefield. He caught a charging raider, spun him around, and used him as a club to knock down 3 more before tossing the dazed man into a group of archers. Then they heard another laugh, this one sharp, unnerving, and somehow crazier than Jacob's. They turned toward the sound. Cogman hadn't stopped to watch Jacob. He was too busy enjoying himself. Energy blasts erupted from his palms. Laser beams shot from his eyes. His hands shifted into all kinds of sharp weapons as he moved through the raiders, cutting off heads and limbs with mechanical precision. They watched as he ripped a still beating heart from a man's chest with his bare hands. He held it out to the dying raider. It's still beating, Cogman said pleasantly. If you find a good doctor, he might be able to put it back. The confused man took his own heart, stared at it for a moment, then dropped dead. Cogman laughed, a cold, metallic sound that sent shivers down the other raiders' spines. A brave raider tried to hack Cogman with an axe from behind. Cogman spun, caught the axe midswing, and then, without breaking rhythm, tore out the man's windpipe. He held it up, turning it over like a curious specimen he was studying. The raiders nearby panicked and tried to flee. Cogman caught one, drove his hand into the man's back, and ripped out his spine in a bloody, disturbing display. Allison and the others collectively shuddered and looked away. They shook their heads and made a silent agreement to ignore the creepy Cogman. Styles cracked his knuckles, a grin spreading across his face. Shall we rejoin the fray? I want to see how many I can take before Jacob clears the board. He raised his hand and summoned another lightning weasel, sending it crackling into the army. The others followed suit, charging back into the chaos. If you like this story and want to support me, please go to Patreon.com ALB AMZ 926. 30 chapters ahead of web novel. To be continued.